Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Sunday School review. We're going to dive into the Word of God and talk about some things that we believe we can look at and relate to. We can see our own lives and situations in the Word of God. It's all over the Word of God. Some families think that their family is the only dysfunctional family. That their family, there's no way in the world God can do anything with my household because my family is just really off the chain. Well, today, when we finish this story with Jacob and his four wives and them 12 boys and the daughter and the murder that took place and all the scheming and so on and so forth, you probably change your mind and say, if God can use them, I know he also has something that he can do for me and for my family. So let's just kind of get right into the Word of God, and we'll see what we're talking about here. And I believe you will agree as we conclude this lesson. The lesson, Scepter given to Judah. And we're coming from Genesis 35, verse 22b through 26, verse 38. Chapter 38, verses 24 through 26, then chapter 49, verses 10 through 12. And so we're going to be dealing with three different chapters today in the scepter given to Judah. I want to begin with some opening questions. Number one, how did the life of older saints of the early church influence your spiritual growth? Watching them, how they conducted themselves, how they lived their lives, how did that influence your spiritual growth? Number two, how can we influence the young believers of today to grow and to mature spiritually? What we do, our lifestyle, how we talk, how we walk, how can that influence young believers? Or should we try to get on that level to influence them? You see a lot of folks that now trying to get on the level of young people to influence them. And young folks look at them like, wow, you're so lame. Trying to talk like young folks, trying to dress like young folks. And here this guy is way up in age, or this lady way up in age, trying to get on that level. And they think it's just super, super lame. Number three, how can we respond with fairness to an unjust situation? Somebody has done you wrong, whether it be talked about you, whether it be lied on you, whether it be they didn't pay you the money back that they owed you. How can you respond to that unjust situation? And number four, how should a person respond when confronted about their sinful decision or even sinful behavior? How should we respond if we are in a sinful situation and somebody confronts us and say, what you're doing is absolutely wrong? How should we respond to that? Well, let's jump right into Jacob's family in Genesis 35, verses 22b through 26. The sons of Leah is Reuben, Jacob's firstborn, and Simeon, and Levi, and Judah, and Issachar, and Zebulun. The sons of Rachel, Joseph, and Benjamin. The sons of Bilhah, Rachel's handmaid, Dan and Naphtali. And the sons of Zilpah, Leah's handmaid, Gad and Asher. Then we see Judah's humbling. Some can happen to your life that humble anybody. You think you're doing all this and all that, then somehow you find yourself in a real humbling situation. So we see Tamar's situations. And it came to pass about 3 months after that it was told Judah, saying, Tamar, thy daughter-in-law, had played the harlot. And also, behold, she is with child by whoredom. And Judah said, bring her forth and let her be burnt. Boy, that's kind of rough, ain't it? You're going to kill her and the baby. In this case, it's going to be 3 murders. because she ended up having twins. Oh boy. Now we also see Tamar's revelation. When she was brought forth, she sent to her father-in-law. She sent to her father-in-law, saying, "By the man whose these are, am I with child?" And she said, "Discern, I pray thee, whose are these, the signet and bracelets and staff." So Tamar had a little insurance. And you go back, you read the whole story, you'll see what she was alluding to when she said, "Look at this stuff that I'm going to send you and see if you could figure out who this baby is." Okay? Can you imagine how he looked when he saw that stuff? Now we see Tamar's righteousness. Now, I know y'all think, Ricky, is that a misprint? Is that a misprint? Did they mean to write righteousness next to her name? Well, let's stay with me throughout the whole lesson. And Judah acknowledged them and said, "She had been more righteous than I, because that I gave her not to Shelah my son, and he knew her again no more." And we're going to look into what that means, a little bit of what that means. We won't have time to dig into this whole lesson because we'll be here for a long time. The third part of our lesson, and the last part, we see Judah's ruler. The king's reign is what we see in part A. "The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet, until Shiloh come, and unto him shall the gathering of the people be." And then B, the last part here of the last part of our lesson, 11 and 12, "Binding his fowl unto the vine, and his ass's coat unto the choice vine. He washed his garments in wine, and his clothes in the blood of grapes. His eyes shall be red with wine, and his teeth white with milk." Now I'm going to pull this down, and we're going to get into a little commentary here. In this lesson, there's a lot of ways for people to justify, I think, what they believe is all right to do. And a lot of Old Testament, this is actually before the law. I can't say this is under the law because Moses was not even born yet. So they didn't have, the law wasn't handed down yet. But so a lot of things went on in the Old Testament that does not go on today and is not approved today. But so let me just kind of put that out there, because some folks are just looking for a way to do what they want to do and to justify what they think is all right. So people are some, as we say back home, some people are something other else when they want to do what they want to do, but not so. Well, let's get into a little commentary here. Jacob had 12 boys, and verse 22 and B, 12 sons, and God had promised Jacob that his descendants was going to be so many, they was going to be like the dust of the earth, Genesis 28 and 14, and like the sand of the sea, that's 32 and 12. And then he had, these boys were fathered by 4 mothers. So I know that you see nowadays young men that's got babies all over town. That's not a nice thing to do, okay? And that kind of goes without saying. But in this case, Jacob did have 12 boys and a girl through 4 different women. And so Leah, that is that first one, and despite having 6 boys, Leah never ever experienced the real love from Jacob that she wanted to receive. And she just kept on getting pregnant, but it didn't help her that much. And sometimes this is one thing that relationships need to understand. You could do all you can for her or for him, trying to buy love or trying to gain or earn love. And if they don't love you, it just doesn't work that way. So Leah never did experience the kind of love that Rachel, her sister experienced. You read Genesis 29 and verse 30. And to make matters worse, that oldest boy, Reuben, was just a scandal, scandalous. And what he did in having a relationship with his one of his stepmoms, really, one of Jacob's handmaidens, he made him lose his firstborn privilege. This family right here did some stuff that was tore up from the floor up. I want you to read Genesis chapter 35 and 22 and chapter 49 verses 3 and 4. And then you got Simeon and Levi. These other two more boys that Leah had through Jacob. And these boys here went on a killing spree because they heard that their sister Dana had been profaned by a Hivite. Now the Hivite did not profane or have sex with her that was she agreed to it, okay? It wasn't like she wasn't raped in this scenario here. She agreed to it, and this Hivite ended up falling in love with her. But them boys did not like that, and boy, they went on a killing spree. So the daddy Jacob was really upset behind this because Jacob said, "Now boys, what y'all done did, y'all gonna mess up the relationship with me and all these surrounding nations, and these folks in I don't know what's gonna come from what y'all have done on this killing spree." Now I don't understand that because Jacob, this is your daughter that these boys talking about, okay? Their sister. But anyway, that's the way it was at that time. Read Genesis 34 verse 25 and then verse 30. And then read Genesis 49 and verse 5. And then we got Judah. Judah is born. And he was going to raise and rise to a position of leadership among all his brothers. I want you to read Genesis 37, 25 through 28, Genesis 44, 14 through 18, and Genesis 46, verses 28. And Judah was kind of rough now. You're going to hear about this in a moment. He did a lot of unrighteous things at times, but he was still very uniquely blessed. In the midst of all his shortcomings, God used him and blessed him. Sound like anybody you know? Like the man and the woman in the mirror, that the Lord still blessed in the midst of the mess? Ain't that something? So Judah and Leah, then later on, Judah and Leah used a little bit of help in getting pregnant with Issachar. They used some thing called mandrakes. You probably heard about that. And it was a plant that seemingly had a aphrodisiac, properties in it, okay? And so, anyway, that's all I'm going to say on that. Genesis chapter 30, verses 15 through 18. And then warriors of the tribe of the sixth boy, Zebulun, they fought. They wasn't a real big group, but they fought with real courage. They were courageous in the days of the judges. All six of them boys was a little bit different in some ways. Just like right now in our homes, all the children are a little bit different. Don't you read Judges 4, verse 6, and then 6 and 35. And then we also see in verse 24, Jacob's love for Rachel was very, very deep. And the Lord blessed Rachel to get pregnant. And she had a boy named Joseph. And Joseph went on to be a very courageous and great leader down in Egypt land. I want you to read Genesis 29 and 30 and Genesis 30 verses 22 through 24. And Joseph's brothers were jealous of him, so jealous to the point that they hated the boy. And they eventually sold their brother for 20 pieces of silver. Does that sound familiar? Sold their brother for 20 pieces of silver to the Ishmaelites, which were some of their kinfolks through Ishmael. I want you to read Genesis chapter 37, verses 3 through and 4, and then chapter 37, verse 28. But the Lord gave Joseph wisdom. He gave Joseph wisdom from above. And as I mentioned, Joseph rose to a great position of leadership in Egypt. He was really the second man in command. In my mind, like a vice president. Like in our country, there's a vice president and a president. Well, he was like a vice president. And look at where he came from. Look at his family's dysfunction. Look at what his brothers did to him, sold him like an animal. Oh my goodness! You got to read that story, class. I want you to read Genesis 41 verses 39 through 41. And then this godly wisdom allowed Joseph to prepare for an upcoming famine in the land. And this wisdom that God gave him would benefit the entire known world, to include his father and his brothers that had forgot about him and thought he was dead, had not seen him since they sold him. The whole known world is going to be benefited from the wisdom of Joseph. I want you to read chapter 42 of Genesis, verses 1 and 2. And Jacob blessed Joseph's sons. Joseph also had some boys. They were some rough boys as well, Ephraim and Manasseh. And he blessed them boys, the grandfather Jacob, blessed them boys like they were his own boys. I want you to read Genesis chapter 48, verse 5. And so then their descendants, Ephraim and Manasseh, their descendants would later be, down the road, was going to be counted in the tribes of Israel, the grandkids. I want you to read Numbers chapter 1, verses 32 through 35. And then there's Rachel's baby boy. Oh boy, y'all know how that baby is close to the heart of those parents. The baby boy was Benjamin, and to whom Jacob was very, very close. I want you to read Genesis chapter 42 and verse number 4. And this baby boy was going to be the one from whom the first king of Israel was going to eventually come as a result of descendants of Benjamin. I want you to read 1 Samuel chapter 9 and verse 21. Then we'll see verse 25 and 26. Now, Rachel, she couldn't get pregnant for a while. Y'all, you read the story. So when she couldn't get pregnant, what she did was call Jacob in and said, Jacob, I want you to go ahead and take my handmaid and make her a wife. So the handmaid Bilhah, she gave him to Jacob. I'm talking about Rachel gave her handmaid to her husband Jacob. They go in there and, y'all know what I'm saying. And so she got pregnant, the handmaid got pregnant, and then she had some kids. And then Rachel named the handmaid that first boy that the handmaid had, she named him Dan. I want you to read Genesis chapter 30, verse 4 through 6. And Dan's descendants was very large, but they was weak from a military standpoint. I want you to read Numbers chapter 1 and verse 39, and Joshua chapter 19 and verse 47, and Judges chapter 1, verse 34 and 35. But then there's Naphtali. But Naphtali, Rachel's handmaids, and his descendants, another boy, was celebrated for their bravery. As I mentioned, ain't no two kids just alike. Even twins ain't. There are certain, my mother and aunt, they are identical twins. Now they think alike, they dress alike, they're together every single day of the week, 7 days a week. But there's something a little bit different about one than the other. And if you don't know them, you probably can't. You don't know what it is. You can't figure it out because they're so close. But there's a little bit of a difference. It's a small difference. So Naphtali was celebrated for, and his descendants for that bravery. And the other boy, Dan, they was large, but they wasn't too brave and wasn't that strong enough from a military standpoint. So Naphtali, they joined forces then with descendants of Asher and Manasseh, some of his other kinfolks, and they came together and they drove out the Midianites. Just drove them out of the land. And the Midianites wasn't no just, walkover. I mean, it just wasn't no just little something you just go. They was pretty strong too, but they came together, they joined forces, came together, and drove them out of the land. I want you to read, there wasn't no pushover. I was trying to say, no, just pushover. I want you to read Judges chapter 5, verse 18, and chapter 7, verse 23 through 25. Actually, read these reference verses, class, and all these are in your Sunday school book as well. Then when Leah, she done had 6 boys, okay? And she couldn't have no more boys. Time was up for her from having kids. So when she couldn't have no more boys, she gave Jacob her handmaid. This is woman number 4, Zilpah. And Zilpah fathered some more kids through Jacob because his wife Leah gave her to him to be a wife. And the first child that he fathered through this handmaid was named Gad. And Gad's kids and descendants and all them, they settled east of the Jordan River on a land that was well suited for raising animals, just a good fertile land. And I want you to read Numbers chapter 32, verse 1 through 33. There's a little bit of reading in that. Just, in Joshua chapter 13 and verse 8. And then we have, that was Zilpah. Zilpah had a son, second son, which is the handmaid, which is Leah's handmaid, had another boy. And his name was Asher, who Jacob proclaimed the richness of the food that he produced. So he was really celebrated because this boy him was a good farmer. And he came through woman number 4, Leah's handmaid, Zilpah, when she couldn't have any more kids. It's almost like it was in competition. Leah said, I can't have no more kids. And Rachel done had these children here. And she done gave through her handmaiden. And so, okay, you want to do that? Let's do this. Here you go, Jacob. Take this one. And we'll see what's going to come out of that. Well, 2 more boys. I told you this family right here was some kind of dysfunction. Judah now is humble. And we're going to get into that part in Genesis 38, verses 24 through 26. And we see Tamar's situation. You see, Tamar lived in her father's household, her biological father's household, but as a wife of his deceased son, Judah had 2 boys, 3 boys. And one boy was then another boy, Onan, and then a third son. And we'll talk about that in a moment. But her first husband died because he was a wicked boy. And so the other boy, Onan, was supposed to come in and marry her and have kids so that bloodline could continue. But this boy said, I don't want to do it. And he got killed. And so I left a third boy, but the third boy was a baby. He's too young. So Judah wanted her to hang around till this third boy get big enough and grown enough to, and they get together and have some kids. Well, that never did happen. And so Tamar was kind of in a pickle there. Okay, she didn't have nobody that's gonna take care of her down the line. So what are we gonna do here? So she got to thinking. So she ended up getting pregnant, and we're gonna look at how she got pregnant. But it was through immorality. It was scheming and sneaky and sinful. Okay, but she anyway, she got pregnant. And then when Judah found out that she got pregnant, he all upset. He done changed his mind. Bring her here. We're going to bun her up. Okay? Now you see how folk can, how hypocritical people can be? Ain't that something? Bring her here. We're going to bun her up. Okay? This woman pregnant. Now she pregnant with his twin boys. He's going to kill her and the kid. Well, what to be? He didn't know it was 2 boys or 1 boy at that time. But he's just going to bun her up. Because he thought, this woman here done cheated. She was married to my son. He dead. Other boy didn't want to act right. He didn't want to. So he ended up getting killed. And she supposed to have been saved for my third boy. Well, he never did give her that third boy to take care of her. So she ended up taking matters in her own hand. So, hang in here. So Tamar had a revelation. All right. So Tamar didn't put him on the Channel 12 news, so to speak. She didn't just publicly announce that he was the daddy. And he was the one that he want to have her killed, but You better be ready. When they burn you up, burn me up, they need to burn you up right beside me. She didn't put him out there on the blast like that. But she forced him to confront his hypocrisy. And she forced him to confront his failure to provide for her through that third boy, that third son. So she got him to, okay, I want you to leave me some. If you want to come over here and, okay, I want you to leave me some, and just so I can know you're going to do what you said you're going to do. So leave me your signet ring, your braces, and your staff. He ain't thinking. She thinking. He left it. And then later on, that's how this whole thing came out, that he was the daddy. So she was crafty, Tamar, crafty and clever. And all the stuff she did revealed what she really wanted to do, revealed her real intentions. She didn't want that stuff for no financial gain. She wasn't going to sell it for no money. She wanted that stuff, that bracelet, and she wanted the brackets, the signet ring and the staff for evidence, because she knew she was thinking for down the road that this man here going to cut up down the road. He going to act up and cut up. So I need to have this as proof of who the daddy of these boys is. So Judah's statement now he said that Tamar was more righteous than what he did. Now his statement, she had been more righteous than I, was not a justification of what she did. Was okay. That wasn't just, it was an acknowledgement that what he had done was acted very unjustly and unfaithful by not allowing her, Tamar, to marry that third boy, Shelah. So he didn't do what he's supposed to do and get her to marry that third boy to keep that bloodline going. You read Genesis chapter 38 and the first 14 verses. So Judah saw then that what he did was to his widowed daughter-in-law was more unrighteous than what she did. Ain't that something? Judah said, what I did is rougher than what you did. What I did is more wrong than what you did, Tamar. What you did is wrong now. I ain't justifying what you did, but what I did was, it wasn't right. So what Tamar wanted, she just wanted what was rightfully hers according to the customs and the order of that day. But look at this. Her end did not justify her means. When I say her end, she got pregnant, had 2 boys, but the way she got them boys there's no justice in how she got them boys. Dressing up like a prostitute, covering up her head, and then here come Judah. Judah come down there, his wife done died, so he got over her pretty quick, looked like, didn't he? His wife had died, and he just ran there and saw this, what he thought was a prostitute covered up, and hey, let me come in unto you. When they say come in unto you, y'all know what they mean, come in unto you. So, she ended up doing it, and they made a trade, and I'm going to give you this, you give me that, and lo and behold, had twin boys. Lo and behold, she ended up Tamar having twin boys by her father-in-law, who didn't know she was dressed like a prostitute. Anyway, that's why I said this story right here is kind of a rough story. So them twin boys that she had continued the bloodline of Judah. And both Judah and Tamar was going to be counted in the ancestry of Jesus. Can y'all hear what I'm saying right there? I want you to read Ruth chapter 4 and verse 12, Genesis chapter 38. Well, read the whole chapter, Genesis 38. Just read the whole chapter. And then Matthew chapter 1 and verse 3. Now we got to bring this thing to a close now. We're going to go over just a little bit, more than 30 minutes, I do believe. So we see the king's reign here. A scepter symbolized the presence of royalty and the presence of authority. Y'all remember the story of Esther. If I perish, I perish, but I'm going to see the king. I'm going before the king. If I perish, I perish, but I'm going before the king. I want you to read Esther chapter 4 and verse number 11. So a permanent ruler then, whose kingdom wasn't going to ever come to an end, was going to come down through the line of Jacob's descendants. And specifically, it's going to come through the tribe of Judah. Through all this stuff they done did and been through, King Jesus was going to come down through that tribe. I want you to read 1 Chronicles chapter 5 and verse 2. So see, God himself is the ultimate lawgiver. Y'all know that to be the case. Now he's the king. He's the ultimate. Ain't nobody over him. Read Isaiah chapter 33 and verse 22. And some other stuff in this verse we ain't got time to dig into, but the phrase Shiloh, there's a little, I mean, it's hard to really translate that, and the Bible scholars have some differences of opinion on that. But Jacob's prophetic intention, that part is clear. The people of this nation and nations were going to be really impacted by the descendants of Judah. And this individual that's going to come down through the descendants was going to gather the people and under his rule and was going to require their obedience because he's going to be the king. You don't play around with a king and say, I ain't gonna pay you no attention. I ain't gonna listen to what you're saying. No, there was a requirement, not an option, to obey the king. I want you to read Zechariah chapter 9 and verse 10. And then we got to bring it on in now. So the king, we see now the king's abundance. The king's abundance was on public display through this picture right here. This is a real imagery of the king's abundance through this grapevine and the livestock that he had. And the king's abundance was so much that he was going to allow the fowl and the colt, these animals, and this baby colt to be tied to the vine. You don't want no animals tied to your vine because they're going to eat up all your crop and your fruit and stuff. But he had so much that it wasn't going to make no difference. They could just eat and eat and eat because the king had so much and it was so bountiful and the crop was so fertile that these animals tied to the vine wasn't going to make no difference. So, and look at this. The king's wealth was so great until the wine was going to be so common like laundry water to wash his clothes in. And the wine presses was going to be so full that his clothes was going to be saturated in these freshly pressed grape juice. They call it the blood of grapes. I want you to read Isaiah chapter 63 and verse 2 and Deuteronomy chapter 32 and verse 14. And prosperity was going to also be just seen in the face of this king. I said prosperity is going to be seen in the face of the king. And some Bible scholars relate wine or red ruby to a person's physical fitness. I want you to read now, back in our day, we saw a guy had red eyes, and we said, this guy here, boy, he been on that dagger. Okay, them red eyes, you know. But this ain't what it means right here, but that's what we saw back then. Bloodshot red. Anyway, we already out of time. I want you to read Lamentations chapter 4, verse 7. We also saw that this king had white, straight teeth. And white, straight teeth was also a very desirable trait. Song of Solomon, y'all know that's Song of Solomon. He just brings it all out in a way that only that book can. But I want you to read Song of Solomon, verse 4 and chapter 4 and verse 2. So this king is going to be a very mighty king, a strong king. And the point that I want to make in closing here, all this came from a dysfunctional family that did some things that when you think about it and read about it, you say, wait a minute, am I reading the Bible? Yes, the Bible keeps it real, and that's exactly what happened. So whatever you have dealt with, whatever you're dealing with right now, don't think that God can't use you, because God can take a mess and bless everything around it, everything through it, everything connected to it. So if he did it for one, he can do it for another. Hey, look, y'all, thank y'all for plugging into our Sunday school. Went over a little bit, and this is probably going to happen again. But thank y'all for plugging in to the Sunday school review. Hope to see you again next week for the review again. Have a great rest of the week, and take care.